My own daughter looked me in the eye in front of everyone and said, "Dad, you weren't invited." I stood there, in the same hall I helped pay for, with people I'd never met staring like I was an intruder at my own child's wedding. But what they didn't know, is that the building they were standing in had my name on the deed. Before I tell you how everything turned upside down that night, please like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because what happened next changed everything. Let me take you back 3 months. 3 months when I still believed that love was enough. When I thought that 25 years of devotion, of sacrifice, of being there for every scraped knee, every broken heart, every milestone, meant something. When I thought that blood was thicker than social status. The call came on a Tuesday. Elena's voice was tight with stress, that particular strain I'd heard so many times before when life got complicated. "Dad, we have a problem." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut because I knew what was coming. I'd raised this girl. I knew her tells. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "The wedding venue. Marcus's parents, they backed out. They said they're having financial difficulties, but I think they just don't want to pay for what they think is beneath them." Her voice cracked, and I could hear 24 years of my little girl in that break. "Dad, it's either you help us or we cancel the venue." Without hesitation, and God help me, I wish I'd hesitated, I said, "How much do you need?" $80,000. $80,000. My entire pension. Every cent I'd saved from 25 years of service, of being shot at, of sleeping in foxholes, of missing Christmas mornings and birthday parties because I was halfway around the world fighting for people who would never know my name. $80,000 that was supposed to be my retirement, my security, my peace of mind in my golden years. "I'll wire it today." "Dad, are you sure? That's everything you have." "Elena, weddings are built on family, not money. You're my family. You're all I have left." And God, the irony of those words burns like acid in my throat now. I told her weddings are built on family, not money. I just didn't know she'd agree, only halfway. I went to the bank that afternoon, my hands shaking as I signed the transfer papers. The teller, a young woman about Elena's age, looked at me with concern. "Sir, this is a substantial amount. Are you certain about this transfer?" "It's for my daughter's wedding," I said, and the pride in my voice makes me sick now. A father's duty doesn't end when they grow up. She smiled then, that warm smile people give when they think they're witnessing something beautiful. "That's so sweet. She's lucky to have a father like you." Lucky. Jesus Christ, lucky. I drove home that day feeling lighter than I had in months. My wife Sarah had been gone for 3 years by then, cancer taking her piece by piece while I held her hand and pretended I wasn't dying right alongside her. Elena was all I had left of the life we'd built together, and I was going to make sure her wedding day was perfect. I was going to make sure she felt loved, supported, surrounded by family. What a fool I was. The first warning sign should have been the rehearsal dinner. Should have been, but I was too blinded by love to see it. Too desperate to believe that everything was going to be okay, that my daughter would always be my little girl, that nothing could come between us. Margaret Halford. Even her name tastes bitter in my mouth. Picture everything you hate about entitled wealth wrapped up in a Chanel suit and dripping with condescension. She looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe, but she did it with a smile that never reached her eyes. "David, isn't it?" she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand that felt limp and cold in mine. "Elena's told us so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied, trying to keep things light. "Oh yes, she mentioned you were in the Marines." "How interesting. So you handle discipline." The way she said discipline, like it was a dirty word, like the idea of structure and honor and service was somehow distasteful. Like the very concept of a man who'd spent his life protecting freedom was beneath her notice. "Ma'am, I handled freedom." She laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was the sound rich people make when they think they're being polite to the help. How quaint. Quaint. 25 years of service, of blood and sweat and sacrifice, reduced to quaint. But it got worse. Oh God, it got so much worse. Throughout the dinner, I watched as the Halfords and their circle discussed their lives, their vacation homes in the Hamptons, their children's private schools, their charity galas where they bought tables for thousands of dollars just to be seen. And with every story, every casual mention of wealth that dwarfed my entire life's savings, I saw Elena shrink a little more. She stopped meeting my eyes when I tried to join the conversation. When I mentioned my service, she'd quickly change the subject. When I told a story about her childhood, about how proud I was of her accomplishments, she'd flush red and stare at her plate. But the worst moment, the moment that should have warned me what was coming, was when Margaret's husband, Richard, asked what I did for work. "I'm retired military," I said with pride. 25 years in the Corps. And now? Now I'm enjoying retirement. I've got my pension, and I do some consulting work with veteran organizations. The silence that followed was deafening. These people, these parasites who'd never worked a day of honest labor in their lives, looked at me like I'd just confessed to being unemployed. Like a military pension was somehow shameful. "How nice," Margaret said finally, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It must be such a relief to have financial stability." Financial stability. She made it sound like charity. Elena excused herself to the bathroom shortly after, and when she came back, her eyes were red. I tried to catch her attention, to ask if she was okay, but she avoided my gaze for the rest of the evening. I should have known then. I should have seen what was happening, how they were poisoning her against me, making her ashamed of where she came from. Making her ashamed of me. But I was blind. Blind with love and hope and the desperate need to believe that my daughter could never, would never, turn her back on me. The wedding day dawned beautiful. Clear skies, perfect temperature, not a cloud to mar what should have been the happiest day of my daughter's life. I put on my dress blues, the same uniform I'd worn to Sarah's funeral, the same uniform that had seen me through promotions and ceremonies and moments of honor that these people would never understand. I looked at myself in the mirror that morning, adjusting my ribbons, making sure every crease was perfect. Sarah's picture sat on the dresser, and I found myself talking to her like I had every morning since she'd been gone. "Our little girl's getting married today, baby. I wish you were here to see it. She's so beautiful, just like you were on our wedding day." My voice broke a little. "I'm scared, Sarah. I'm scared I'm losing her too. If I'd known then what the day would bring, I would have taken off that uniform and driven away. I would have saved myself the humiliation, the pain, the complete destruction of everything I thought I knew about my daughter. But I didn't know. So I drove to the venue with my heart full of hope and my wallet empty of everything I'd ever saved. The ceremony was supposed to start at 4. I arrived at 3, wanting to see Elena before everything began, to tell her how proud I was, how much I loved her, how beautiful she looked. The venue was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, gardens that stretched for acres, all paid for with my money, my sacrifice, my trust. I walked through those doors feeling like I belonged there, like I had every right to be there, because I did. Every flower, every candle, every chair had been bought with my pension. I found the bridal suite and knocked gently. "Elena?" "It's Dad." "Just a minute." Her voice was high, strained. I could hear hushed conversations, urgent whispers. When the door opened, it wasn't Elena. It was Margaret. "David. You're here." "Of course I'm here. It's my daughter's wedding. She stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her, blocking my view of Elena. There's been a small change in plans. What kind of change? Well, Richard's brother James is going to walk Elena down the aisle. He's a federal judge, very distinguished, and we thought it would be more appropriate for the photographs. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered back a step. Appropriate? You understand, don't you? This is a very important day for our family, and we want everything to be perfect. Our family? I'm her father. Of course you are. And we're so grateful for your contribution. But surely you can see that having James escort her would be better for everyone. Better for everyone. Everyone except the man who'd raised her, loved her, sacrificed everything for her. I'd like to speak to Elena. She's getting ready. Very nervous, you understand. Perhaps it would be better if you took your seat. You'll have a lovely view from the back. The back. Not the front row where the father of the bride belongs, but the back, hidden away like something shameful. I wanted to push past her, to demand to see my daughter, to fight for my place in her life. But 25 years of military discipline had taught me something these people would never understand: sometimes you retreat to fight another day. Where's my seat? Row 12. The usher will show you. Row 12. Behind cousins I'd never met, behind friends of friends, behind people who'd contributed nothing to this day except their social status. I walked into that ceremony hall, my ceremony hall, the one I'd paid for, and found my place in the back. The usher, a young man in an expensive suit, looked at my uniform with confusion. Are you family, sir? I'm the bride's father. His face went white. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. There must be some mistake. You should be in the front row. No mistake, son. Row 12 is fine. I sat down surrounded by strangers, my dress blues standing out like a beacon among their designer suits and cocktail dresses. People stared, whispered, tried to figure out who I was and why I was there. Then the music started. I watched my daughter walk down that aisle on the arm of a man she'd known for 6 months, a man who'd done nothing to earn the right to that moment except be born into the right family. She was radiant, beautiful, everything a bride should be. And she never once looked in my direction. The ceremony was beautiful. The flowers were perfect, the music was flawless, the words were meaningful. Everything I'd paid for was exactly as it should be. Except the most important thing of all, the man who should have been standing proud in the front row, watching his little girl become a woman. Instead, I sat in the back like a stranger, like an intruder, like someone who had no right to be there at all. When the minister asked who gives this woman to be married, James stepped forward and proudly declared, "Her family and I do." Her family and I. Not her father. Not the man who'd loved her since before she was born, who'd walked the floor with her when she was sick, who'd taught her to ride a bike and helped her with homework and held her when her mother died. Her family and I. The reception was held in the same building, in the grand ballroom that overlooked the gardens. Round tables with white linens, centerpieces that cost more than most people's weekly salary, a band that probably charged more for one night than I made in a month. All paid for with my money. I found my assigned table, table 15, again near the back, again surrounded by strangers. The couple next to me introduced themselves as business associates of the groom's father. They made polite conversation, asked how I knew the couple. I'm Elena's father. The woman's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, surprise, embarrassment, pity. Oh, we thought Richard's brother was. That's the man who walked her down the aisle. I'm the man who raised her. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. These people didn't know what to do with me, didn't know how to process the fact that the father of the bride was sitting at table 15 while strangers occupied the head table. The dinner was served, prime rib and salmon, wines that cost more per bottle than most people spend on groceries in a week. I ate mechanically, tasting nothing, my eyes fixed on the head table where Elena sat laughing with her new family, never once glancing in my direction. Then came the speeches. Richard stood first, welcoming everyone and talking about what a wonderful addition Elena was to their family. He spoke about her grace, her intelligence, her bright future. He thanked everyone who had made the evening possible, the caterers, the band, the venue staff. Everyone except the man who'd actually paid for it all. Marcus spoke next, professing his love for Elena, talking about their future together, about how lucky he was to have found her. He thanked his parents for their support, for raising him to be the man he was today. Then Margaret stood, and my blood turned to ice. "I want to thank everyone who made this magical evening possible," she began, her voice carrying easily through the room. "Our family is so blessed to have found Elena, and we're so grateful to everyone who helped bring our children together." She went on to thank the wedding planner, the florist, the band. She thanked relatives who'd traveled from out of state. She thanked friends who'd helped with the preparations. She never mentioned my name. Not once. When she finished, the MC stood up and smiled at the crowd. "Are there any other family members who'd like to say a few words?" I started to stand, my heart pounding, my hands shaking with emotion. This was my moment. My chance to tell everyone how proud I was of Elena, how much I loved her, how grateful I was to have been her father for 24 years. The MC looked directly at me, and for a moment, I thought he was going to hand me the microphone. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry, sir. The family has requested that only parents from the couple's side speak tonight." Parents from the couple's side. As if I wasn't her parent. As if 24 years of love and sacrifice and devotion meant nothing because I didn't have the right social status, the right bank account, the right connections. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, the room silent, all eyes on me. I could feel the pity, the embarrassment, the second-hand shame of people who couldn't understand how a father could be so publicly dismissed at his own daughter's wedding. I sat back down slowly, my face burning with humiliation, my hands clenched so tight my knuckles went white. But I wasn't done yet. God help me, I still believed that love could win, that family meant something, that my daughter would remember who I was and what I meant to her. The band started playing, and couples moved onto the dance floor. I watched as Marcus danced with Elena, then as Richard cut in for the father-daughter dance, the dance that should have been mine. I waited until the song ended, then I stood up and walked across that room with every eye on me, my dress blues impeccable, my bearing proud despite the humiliation I'd endured. I approached Elena gently, my voice soft and respectful. "Sweetheart, may I have one dance before I go?" She looked at me with something that might have been panic, her eyes darting to the Halfords' table where Margaret watched with obvious disapproval. "Dad, please don't make this harder." "Harder?" "Elena, I just want one dance with my daughter." "You weren't." She took a shaky breath, and for a moment I saw my little girl again, the one who used to fall asleep in my arms, who used to run to me when she was scared or hurt. But then she straightened, and I saw the woman she'd become, the woman who'd learned to be ashamed of where she came from. "You weren't invited to stay." The words hit me like a sniper's bullet, clean and devastating. I actually felt my heart stop beating for a moment, felt the world tilt and shift around me. Invited to stay. Dad, these people, they're important. This is important. I can't. I need you to understand. The crowd had gone silent around us, sensing drama, smelling blood in the water. I could see phone cameras starting to come out, people positioning themselves to capture what they thought would be a scene. Margaret appeared at Elena's side like a shark smelling blood. Mr. Morrison, perhaps it would be best if you left quietly. Let's not make a scene. Not make a scene. After everything I'd given, everything I'd sacrificed, they wanted me to leave quietly, to disappear into the night like I'd never existed, like I'd never mattered. I looked at Elena one more time, searching her face for any sign of the daughter I'd raised, the little girl who used to tell me I was her hero. But all I saw was a stranger wearing my daughter's face, a woman who'd sold her soul for social acceptance. I nodded slowly, feeling something die inside my chest. All right. But before I go, let's see who's really hosting this celebration. I turned away from Elena, away from Margaret's satisfied smile, away from the crowd of vultures waiting to see how this would end. I walked across that ballroom with my head high and my shoulders straight, every inch the Marine I'd always been. I found Thomas Harper, the venue director, standing near the bar supervising the service. Tom was a good man, a veteran himself, someone who understood honor and respect and what it meant to keep your word. "Tom," I called out, my voice carrying across the room. "How's the contract looking tonight?" Tom's face went white as he realized what was about to happen. The conversations around us died as people sensed something big was coming. "Yes, sir," he replied, his voice formal and respectful. "Everything's in your name, as always, Captain Morrison." The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in that massive ballroom. People turned to stare, to try to understand what they'd just heard. Margaret pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of confusion and growing alarm. "Your name? What is he talking about?" I turned to face the room, to face all these people who'd spent the evening treating me like an unwelcome intruder. My voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who'd learned to deliver bad news to families, who'd learned to maintain composure under fire. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate my daughter's wedding. I'm David Morrison, Elena's father, and I'm the owner of this venue." The gasps were audible. People started pulling out their phones, checking the venue's website, confirming what I'd just told them. "I don't just fund my daughter's weddings," I continued, my eyes fixed on Margaret's horrified face. "I fund this venue, this staff, and half the catering company serving your tables tonight." I turned to Elena, who stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor, her face white with shock and dawning understanding. "I paid for half your happiness tonight, sweetheart. And you rented the other half to people who think they own you." Margaret found her voice first, sputtering with indignation. "This is impossible. Richard handled all the arrangements. We paid for this venue ourselves. Ma'am, you paid the rental fee to my company. This building, these grounds, the staff you've been ordering around all evening, they all belong to me. Have for the past 5 years. Because you see, that's the part of the story Elena never bothered to share with her new family. When Sarah was sick, when the medical bills were mounting and we were facing bankruptcy, I'd made a desperate decision. I'd taken out a loan against my pension and bought a struggling event venue, turned it around with hard work and military discipline, and built it into one of the most sought-after wedding destinations in the state. My daughter was getting married in a building I owned, served by staff I employed, surrounded by luxury I'd created. And she'd never told her new family. She'd let them believe they were slumming it by associating with a simple retired Marine, when the truth was they couldn't afford to rent a closet in my building without their trust funds. "Elena," I said, my voice softer now, filled with all the pain and disappointment and heartbreak of the last few hours. "Did you really think I'd gotten $80,000 from my pension? Did you really think a military retirement could pay for all this?" She opened her mouth but no words came out. The truth was written all over her face, she'd known. Maybe not the details, but she'd known I was more than the simple soldier she'd presented to the Halfords. And she'd chosen to let them humiliate me anyway. The room was in chaos now. People were whispering, pointing, trying to process what they'd just learned. The band had stopped playing. The waitstaff stood frozen, unsure what to do. Richard Halford pushed through the crowd, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "This is preposterous. We've paid good money for this venue. You can't just—" "Sir," I interrupted, my voice still calm but with an edge of steel that made him step back. "You paid rental fees for one evening's use of my property. Those fees, I might add, that go directly into my business account. The same business account that pays the salaries of everyone working tonight." I turned to address the room again. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something. I've spent 25 years serving this country, protecting the freedoms that allow gatherings like this to take place. I've been shot at, bombed, and seen friends die in foreign countries so that you could all sleep safely in your beds." My voice was getting stronger now, powered by years of suppressed anger, of being looked down upon, of being treated like I was less than because I'd chosen service over profit. I came home from that service and built a business with my own hands, created jobs for dozens of people, many of them veterans like myself. This venue has hosted hundreds of weddings, brought joy to thousands of families. And tonight, in my own building, I was told I wasn't good enough to walk my own daughter down the aisle. The shame on Elena's face was visible from across the room. She started to move toward me, tears streaming down her cheeks, but I held up a hand to stop her. "I'm not done." I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone, dialing a number I knew by heart. "Tom, it's David Morrison. I need you to implement Protocol 7 at the main venue. Effective immediately after the last song tonight." I paused, making sure the entire room could hear me. "Yes, all services. Complete withdrawal." I hung up and looked around the room at the confused faces, the growing alarm among the Halfords and their circle. "Ladies and gentlemen, Protocol 7 is something we implement when a client violates our core values of respect and honor. It means that all services provided by Morrison Event Management and our affiliated businesses will cease at midnight tonight." Margaret's voice was shrill with panic. "You can't do this. We have a contract." "Ma'am, you have a contract for venue rental until midnight. At 12:01, you'll be trespassing on private property." "But the band, the catering, the flowers. All provided by veteran-owned businesses that contract through my company. Businesses that understand the value of respect and honor." I watched as the implications hit them. The band started packing up their equipment. The waitstaff began clearing tables. The florist started removing centerpieces. Within minutes, the magical evening they'd created was dissolving around them. "You can't do this to our daughter," Richard shouted, his composure finally cracking. "Sir," I replied, my voice deadly quiet, "she's not your daughter. She's mine. And I'm not doing anything to her. I'm just leaving, as invited." The chaos that followed was beautiful in its justice. The Halfords scrambled to contact other vendors, other venues, other caterers, trying to salvage what was left of the evening. But word travels fast in the veteran community, and within hours, every military-connected business in the state knew what had happened. Elena tried to reach me that night, calling my phone over and over, leaving tearful voicemails that I couldn't bring myself to listen to. The local news picked up the story by morning: veteran father withdraws support from daughter's wedding after public humiliation. The story went viral within days. Social media exploded with support for my actions, with veterans sharing their own stories of being looked down upon, of having their service dismissed by people who'd never sacrificed anything for anyone. The Halfords found themselves social pariahs overnight. Their country club memberships were quietly revoked. Their business contracts dried up. The veteran community in our state is larger and more influential than most people realize, and when we stand together, we're a force to be reckoned with. But none of that mattered to me. What mattered was the sound of my daughter's voice breaking as she left message after message, begging me to call her back, to forgive her, to help her understand how everything had gone so wrong. I didn't call her back for a week. I needed time to process what had happened, to deal with the anger and hurt and disappointment that threatened to consume me. I needed time to decide whether I could ever look at her the same way again. When I finally did see her, it was in my office at the venue. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of what she'd done. Her designer wedding dress had been replaced by jeans and a sweater, her perfect hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her face was puffy from crying. "Dad," she whispered, and in that single word I heard all the pain and regret and desperate hope of a daughter who'd realized what she'd lost. "Elena. I lost everything I thought mattered," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Marcus left me. His family won't speak to me. All their friends have turned their backs on us. I have nothing left." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in months. Stripped of the designer clothes and the social pretensions, she looked like the little girl I'd raised, the one who used to crawl into my lap when she was scared. "No," I said softly, my voice still carrying the weight of my disappointment. "You just learned what matters for real." She collapsed into the chair across from my desk, sobbing with the kind of grief that comes from losing something you thought was unshakable. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know how I became someone who could treat you like that." "I do," I said. "You forgot where you came from. You forgot what real strength looks like. You let people convince you that honor and service and sacrifice were things to be ashamed of instead of proud of. Can you ever forgive me?" I leaned back in my chair, studying this woman who was my daughter but felt like a stranger. The anger was still there, burning in my chest like shrapnel that couldn't be removed. But underneath it, deeper and stronger, was 24 years of love that couldn't be erased by one night of betrayal. "Elena, forgiveness isn't something I can just hand you like a gift. It's something you'll have to earn." "How?" "Tell me how and I'll do it." "By remembering who you are. By remembering who raised you and what he taught you about honor and respect and standing up for what's right. By proving to me that the daughter I loved for 24 years is still in there somewhere." She nodded frantically, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'll do anything, Dad. Anything." "Then start by understanding this: respect isn't an inheritance, honey. It's earned, even from your own father." The road back wasn't easy. Elena had to rebuild her life from scratch, had to find work and learn to support herself without the Halford money and connections. She had to face the consequences of her choices, had to live with the knowledge that she traded her father's love for social status and lost both. But slowly, over months of honest conversation and genuine effort, she began to find her way back to the person I'd raised. She got a job at a veteran support center, working with families who'd lost loved ones in service. She volunteered at military events, seeing firsthand the respect and honor that comes with serving something bigger than yourself. And gradually, painfully, we began to rebuild our relationship. Not the naive, unconditional love of before, but something stronger, something earned, something based on mutual respect rather than just blood. The venue continued to thrive. Word of what happened brought us more business than we could handle, as veterans and their families sought out a place where their service would be honored and respected. Elena eventually came to work for me, starting at the bottom and earning her way up through hard work and dedication. The Halfords never recovered from the scandal. Richard's business failed within a year, brought down by the combined weight of lost contracts and social ostracism. Margaret died alone in a nursing home, abandoned by the same social circle she'd valued more than human decency. Marcus remarried within 6 months, choosing a wife with better connections and more money. But those are their stories, not mine. My story is about learning that sometimes love means walking away. Sometimes respect means demanding to be treated with dignity. Sometimes being a father means letting your child face the consequences of their choices, even when it breaks your heart. In war, you learn how to retreat. In family, you learn when not to return. That night, I didn't lose a daughter, I helped her find herself. Elena's wedding anniversary comes around each year now, but we don't celebrate the day she married Marcus. Instead, we commemorate the day she chose to come home, to remember who she really was, to earn back the love she'd thrown away. Because that's the thing about honor, it can't be bought or inherited or borrowed. It can only be earned, one choice at a time, one moment of courage at a time, one act of respect at a time. And forgiveness? Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's not pretending that nothing happened or that the pain wasn't real. Forgiveness is choosing to build something new on the ruins of what was broken, something stronger because it was tested and survived. My daughter learned that lesson the hard way. So did I. But we learned it together, and that's what makes us family. Not blood, not obligation, not social status or financial support. Choice. The choice to stand by each other when it's easy and to fight for each other when it's hard. The choice to remember that honor never retires, and neither does love, real love, the kind that demands the best from people and refuses to accept less. That's the story I want you to remember. Not the night my daughter broke my heart, but the months and years it took us to put it back together, piece by piece, choice by choice, until it was stronger than it had ever been before. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone in your life who's forgotten what respect means, then share it. Because the world needs to remember that honor isn't old-fashioned or outdated. It's the foundation that everything else is built on. And when that foundation cracks, when respect is forgotten and dignity is dismissed, sometimes the only way to rebuild is to tear everything down and start over. Sometimes the only way to save someone you love is to let them fall far enough to remember who they really are. That's what I did for my daughter. That's what love sometimes demands. The courage to walk away so they can find their way back home.